Top of the morning to everyone listening out there. You already know this is Mental Health Show 111 every Wednesday. Today I present to you the topic of the day, child abuse and its implication to the mental health. Child abuse. What is child abuse? We all know that child abuse is about the actions we do. Little do we know that it also pertains to the inactions we perpetrate. Child abuse is doing something or not doing something that results in harm to a child or puts a child at risk of harm. Child abuse can be physical, sexual, emotional. Do you know that neglect or not providing for a child's need is also a form of abuse? There are diverse forms of child abuse, especially in West Africa and Nigeria, to be more specific. We have the likes of female genital mutilation, FGM. We have the likes of molestation. We have the physical abuse. Child labor cannot be removed from it. What about the forced marriages? Underage marriages? When we're growing up, we're given this notion of strangers are dangers. Typically, stranger, danger. That's why most of the time you see kids, you try to wave at them and then they snub you, running into their hideouts. Yes, that we were taught so that we could preserve these children. But what about the people whom they feel safety with, called family, relations, loved ones, guardians, teachers, religious leaders? I'm not here alone today. I have right here with me a very passionate mental health advocate. She's been on this show before and she's returning bigger and better. As a matter of fact, this is more or less our area of concentration. She's currently undergoing a master's degree in child and adolescent mental health at the University College Hospital, University of Ibadan. She is also a research fellow in the public health space with Lumen Plus Consulting. I beg your pardon. Please join me as I welcome Miss FEYISAYO ADEBAYO-SANNI. Thank you for coming again on the show.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, awesome. We're always very glad to have you, and I remember that I made that remark the first time. Your smile is enough to glow the day. Thank you again.
Yeah, I think this comes with talking about what I do. So yeah. Thank you.
Your passion towards the mental health is actually a motivation to me, and I strongly believe it's also a motivation to thousands of our listeners out there.
Oh, I hope it is.
Okay, without wasting much of our time, let's go straight to child abuse. What would you say, from your professional knowledge, child abuse is?
Okay, so I would just like to agree with you about what you said previously about child abuse. It's the actions or inactions of adults that violate a child, and it could be sexual, it could be physical, it could be neglect, it could be emotional. When you talk about physical abuse, it involves things like hitting a child, spanking the child, probably using iron to, burn a child when the child does something wrong or doesn't do something wrong. When you talk about it in the emotional sense, it could be talking down on the child, comparing them to their peer, to their siblings. I think it's something that is even very common in this part of the world.
Yes.
You compare children to each other, and can't you see your mate is doing this and all of that. It could also be neglect, not providing them with what they need. You know that this child needs food, okay, and then you don't give the child food in the morning, or you're just like, the child will sort the child self out, and as an adult, you're the one that is supposed to, run around to make those things provided, and then you don't get them across to the child. So that's neglect. I think I pretty much covered all the bases on what child abuse is professionally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, going into the common types of child abuse we have in this part of the world, and surprisingly, it's not just limited, or it's not peculiar to this part of the world alone.
Yes, you're
many
right.
of these forms of child abuse is actually global, and according to the World Health Organization, on their website, it is stated that 1 of 3 women and 1 of 5 men were abused as kids.
Well, yes, that I do agree with that statistics. Yeah, I've seen it, and yes, I agree with it.
And you'll be so shocked that this frequency is getting to increase, and is becoming something we could regard as a pandemic. Because when initially it was 1 out of 3, and now it has now come as much as 5 of every 7. That is far more than 2 over 3.
Yes, it is 2 over 3.
It's more than 2 over 3.
It is.
So if we're saying out of 7 people,
5 have been
sexually abused generally as kids. It's becoming too worrisome. Let's first go across all those forms of child abuse.
Okay.
Then we'll go ahead to relate with how you think we can manage all those things, how it comes to play.
Okay.
Because there are some that comes from our social and cultural norms. You could imagine the misconception of any female who does not have the genitals mutilated might have uncontrolled sex
urges,
you get libidos and others, and then they turn out to be bad people when it comes to marriage and co, that they're unable to stay with one single man. Meanwhile, this is having in fact so much impact, mental, physical.
Yes.
In fact,
yeah, like deforming the body of a female by cutting off the clitoris or engaging in any of the because we have various types of female genital mutilation.
Okay, please go ahead with that.
Okay, so if you're talking about female genital mutilation, it comes in three major types. There's like the complete cutoff of the entire sexual organ. Okay, so this would have been me like describing what the female sexual organ looks like and how the female genital mutilation occurs, or what those various types look like. Okay. But basically, the idea is we have the clitoris in females, and it's the major organ responsible for sexual stimulation. Yes. And the idea behind female genital mutilation is cutting that part off, so that they really do not enjoy sexual stimulation, or at least men cannot, in quotes, tell them things or make them happy or please them sexually to the point that they are not satisfied with one particular partner. So that's the idea behind female genital mutilation, and it's a very painful process. I've not gone through it, but I have heard stories from survivors of female genital mutilation, and it's an extremely excruciating process for them, and it's a traumatic process for them. So I think I understand that. I understand where that comes from. But it's not just female genital mutilation that is like the only form of physical abuse.
No, definitely. It's just quite rampant.
Especially in the northern part of the country. Actually, it's more rampant in the northern part of the country because you have many families having female children that they want to, send off to their husband's houses at very early ages. I've been there. I've seen things like that happen. I've seen families in the north where you see this very young lady and you're like, she's already in her husband's house with like
exactly
5 or 6 children. And you're like, when did this happen?
That's speaking about underage marriages.
Yes,
and
forced marriages. Yes.
Well, to some certain extent, the Islamic law gives right to mutual agreement between families for marriage. They kind of call it a kind of arranged marriage. Okay. But let's not misquote arranged marriages for forced marriages. Especially for the fact that mutually arranged marriages, things are put into consideration from rightful thinking parents, whom by the Islamic law are deemed right to do such. But then, there's still some of them that misappropriate that and then force children into marriage. I think that is the major bone of contention here. The likes of the forced marriages where people just push a kid who does not even know what her body parts are yet. You could imagine pushing a child who has not even had a first menstruation into the husband's house. How do you feel about this?
Okay, so first off, I think it's important to understand who a child is under law.
Good.
Yeah, and then a child is any individual that is below the age of 18. In some parts of the world, we have a child as someone who is below the age of 16.
Yeah, 16, 17. For the likes of Western Europe, it's always 17,
yeah,
16.
But under law in Nigeria, we have 18.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, so there are laws currently that are being enacted that state that nobody under the age of 18 should be, sent off to their spouses' places and all of that. But about arranged marriages, I don't think the arrangement of the marriage is the problem. Like you said, individuals have like the options of choosing. Okay, they should be able to choose. And when you take that right away from an individual, then it becomes a forced marriage. Okay, the person cannot choose to either be with this person, or if you arrange for two people to meet each other and then they like each other, that's okay.
Yes. If they are in support of the arrangement.
But if they are not, then I don't think you should force two people to be married to each other.
Okay, good. What about the likes of the physical abuse? You could just like in the Yoruba land, you hear the likes of in your kolom biomo igbe in your lungu. Let me interpret back to English because of our foreign listeners. One person gives birth, but over 200 people train this child.
Yes.
Now this is misinterpreted into beating the child, and then some even back it up by biblical words,
saying spare the rod and spoil the child.
You get this. The Bible did not say kill the child or break the child's limbs.
Well, yes, you're right, and I really shouldn't be laughing about it. It's just the interpretation of the Yoruba adage that is making me laugh about this. Okay. But it's a very serious issue, and in truth, sometimes you need to learn to pass the message across to your children without resorting to beating. We talk about in the child and adolescent mental health space, we talk about corporal punishment as when you say an extreme, like an extreme last resort.
Yes.
So you must have exhausted every other thing,
means of correction.
Yes,
before
exactly.
Then you now feel like, okay, fine.
And even with exhausting every other thing, it's still not acceptable. It's still not right. It's something that a child should be taken away from you for. I mean, social workers should, come and see that this child has scars on their body, or because the thing about abuse is that it traumatizes the child even up till adulthood. Okay, that's why you see some people in some relationships believe that if they are not hit or if they are not